topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, welcome to Bill Martinez Live. Great to have you along with us, sharing a part of your day. Our next guest, a good friend of mine, Laurie Cardoza-Moore. She's the founder president of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, and she reminds us that we must continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That is scriptural. As the Israeli-Hamas war goes into its third week, there is much being reported, some true, so much, not so much. The fog of war brings with it many misunderstandings and misinformation. And the misinformation, misunderstandings goes back thousands of years. And Laurie Cardoza joins us now to help us remember how this conflict began, why it's been going on through the millennia, this what some have referred to as ancient hatred. Laurie, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Bill, great to be back on the program. Thank you for having me.
Well, you have championed the cause for the support of Israel for many, many years. This is what, as part of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations is all about. And we have seen the continuation and growth of anti-Semitism, even though, according to the latest Rasmussen report, still a majority of Americans believe and support Israel.
Yeah, there was just a poll that just came out. I believe today, 80% of Americans support the state of Israel in this battle with Hamas. So it goes to show that there's still a lot of Americans who know their history, who support Israel, because of course, Bill, this is a Judeo-Christian nation.
Exactly.
And we were founded on those biblical principles that Israel is called to uphold in their own nation as a people group to the nations of the world. And, you talked about the history. Why does this continue? Well, God said that he would wage war against Amalek from generation to generation. And for your audience, if we don't remember who Amalek is, Amalek was the one who blindsided, that's their MO in military. They blindsided the Israelites when they were going through the desert, when they left Egypt, they were headed to the promised land. And who were the people in the back that they were blindsided by? It was the women, it was the children, it was the elderly, it was the infirmed. And God told the Israelites, you are never to forget what they did to you. And we've seen that happen. We have seen anti-Semitism in Egypt with Pharaoh. We saw the anti-Semitism with Haman in Persia. We look at the pogroms that have taken place. We see the anti-Semitism during the pogroms, and a lot of Christians were involved in those pogroms. We saw it with the Inquisition. The Catholic Church was behind that horrible event in history. That slaughtered Jews, people who converted to Christianity and then were forced to test their conversion by torturing them. And then, of course, we have the Holocaust in modern day. But what's frightening, Bill, we've seen these skirmishes since Israel was reborn as a nation. They have been attacked. People say, the Holocaust ended in 1945. No, it didn't. The Holocaust has been going on since then. Remember, Israel was attacked. After Israel became a nation state, they were attacked. They were attacked in 1957. They were attacked in 1970 or 67. And they were attacked in 1973. And we've seen the first and the second Intifada. It goes on and on and on. And it all comes back down to the hatred of Edom, of Ishmael, of Amalek. And that's what hit Israel on October 7th. Amalek reared his ugly head once again with, unfortunately, the help of the world. We look at the leaders of Iran who are behind this. They are funding it. You've got Biden, our president, who says, well, we don't have any proof that Iran was behind it. Are you kidding me?
Yes, exactly.
I think we're that stupid. And, Bill, we need to be mindful, cognizant that it is our tax dollars that are funding this.
Exactly.
The people, our government is not Biden and all of the congressmen and senators. This government is we the people.
Yes.
We have the government leaders that we have. We have the policies that they implement because we the people chose them. And justice is going to be served. America, if you look at the similarities of what is happening in Israel was attacked from her southern border. Look at what we've got coming across our southern border. I was watching Fox News earlier, and they were reporting that they're concerned that these militants, Hamas, Hezbollah, are going to be crossing the border, the southern border. Well, we know they've already crossed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and only recently, Laurie, have they admitted that Hezbollah has been camping out in Mexico, working in conjunction with the cartels, which, oh, yeah, by the way, the cartels have been able to establish a working infrastructure in just about every state in the union right now. I think only 8 states are have not given residence to the cartels. That's how deep this is, and this is how dangerous this is right now.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. If you look at even the northern border, Israel's being attacked by Hezbollah from the north. Yes. Look at what's happening on the border of America and Canada. We know that there are terrorists coming across that border as well. God is not going to just stand by and allow little Israel to be attacked. It's coming to us as Americans. And in fact, I believe it was Christopher Wray last week publicly told in an interview, publicly said that an attack like what's happening in Israel is imminent in the United States. They are warning us.
Right.
They are telling us to expect this.
Well, how many years have the Arab nations been telling us that Israel first and then America?
That's right.
And what's our response? Oh, let's just give them some of the taxpayers' money and support the cause for them. I mean, under Donald Trump, Iran was near broke. And it didn't take long for Joe Biden and his administration to come in. People were all concerned because we paid $6 billion to free hostages, which was unprecedented. We don't do it. And there's policy and substantial reasoning in history why you don't. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But regardless, $6 billion. But then they forgot, I didn't want to mention until somebody brought up, well, what about the billions of dollars that have been going to Iran, somewhere between 60, 80, some have said as much as $100 billion in supposed sanctions that was supposed to stop them, from selling oil to China, but they've been doing that. And meanwhile, their coffers have been expanding. And what do you think, as the number one terrorist nation, what do you think they've been funding? You're going to tell me they're not funding Hamas or Hezbollah?
No, absolutely not. We are funding. Unfortunately, we are funding even Hezbollah through the training of the Lebanese army. We are funding, we know Iran. We are funding even right now with the Rafah border closing and opening with Egypt to try to get some of these Gazans out of Hamas territory, out of Gaza. And unfortunately, we have the whole world is commanding or demanding that Israel open up those borders and let humanitarian relief come in. We don't know. Israel doesn't know what's in those trucks. They are essentially, we all know what they're doing. They're getting ready to rearm Israel's enemy right in the middle of a war.
Exactly.
Caroline Glick was talking about this. I saw a video presentation she did a couple days ago. And she was talking about this, that our government, our administration, Biden and Blinken are hamstringing Israel.
Exactly.
Telling them, we're going to give you the military assets you need, but you can't use them against these infrastructures like schools and hospitals. And of course, Israel, what does Israel do when they go to war in there? They drop leaflets. They tell people, head to the south, get out of the north. These are the targets that we're going to hit. We're going to target. And what happens? The people try to flee. And what does Hamas do? They prevent them from leaving because they want the collateral damage.
They're their shields, Laurie. And,
absolutely.
That's what it's all about. We're talking with Laurie Cardoza-Moore, founder and president of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. Laurie, this thing is so obvious what's going on. I mean, the lack of leadership, from Joe Biden and this administration. Why should we expect any different? This is what concerns me. It should concern all Americans right now. Joe Biden, according to Robert Gates, has not gotten one thing right in 40 years of service to our country in different positions. And he's been consistent. He's failed at every end when it comes to, foreign policy and the likes. And now he's the president, the commander in chief, while America is on the brink of, 2 wars, an additional war, a likelihood of a regional expansion of this war in Israel. And we're close to maybe even World War III. And Joe Biden is going to be the commander in chief. Yeah. We're in trouble.
We are in trouble. And Bill, I look at what's happening to our country. Not only are we involved in all of these foreign wars and we're helping to fund them, but we are getting ready to go bankrupt as a nation. I was listening to a report the other day that we can't even pay the interest rate on the debt. And
it's almost up to the same budget as our defense budget, Laurie. It's over and above $500 billion right now. And if there's any increase in interest, heaven help us.
That's absolutely. So here we are printing more money to fund more wars that we can't afford. And what are we going to be strapped with? How is this going to impact us as a country? How will it impact the next generation?
Exactly.
Bill, and I want to tell your audience this upcoming election, November of 2024. I know everybody says every year, this is the most important election of our lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important election. We don't know. We're either going to sell ourselves into slavery or we're going to come out of this and we're going to select the right leader to take us out of this. We have put a bunch of Marxists in control of our government. We were never supposed to be a Marxist country. We have always been a nation, a republic. And unfortunately, we don't even know what a republic is anymore because we keep listening to the reporters talk and elected officials who say we're a democracy. We are not a democracy. We never were a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. We are a republic of we the people, by the people, for the people. That's us. And unfortunately, we have our greatest ally, our dearest friend, both from a biblical perspective and a political perspective, can't even rely on us anymore. They are told what to do. Bibi has his hands tied behind his back. He has to do everything. If he wants any, like I said, military assets, he's got to do exactly what Blinken and Biden tell him to do.
Exactly.
We need to tell Bibi Netanyahu, and if Bibi's listening to this broadcast, I would say to him, Bibi, the people of America are behind you. Do what you need to do. We have been, the world is waiting for Israel to rise up to protect all humanity. If Israel does not, while they have the chance, wipe out this enemy, we're in trouble. And Bill, what's really alarming to me is the number of Christian leaders who support Hamas.
Exactly.
In Israel.
Right.
I want to know, what Bible are you reading from?
But that's the main problem, though, Laurie. It's the same thing. I was talking to somebody else here. When I went to Israel here probably about 5-6 years ago, I was shocked to see how secularized Israel had become. And I saw it mirroring in so many ways the same thing here in America. I mean, this is a spiritual issue. This is God's land. Right. And traditionally, what has happened, whether we're talking the 6-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, here we are, interestingly enough, with that 50-year cycle. Whenever 50 years come into play, you always consider, biblically, the Jubilee consequence of 50 years and what that means. And it's interesting to see what's missing out of Bibi Netanyahu and coming out of Israel. And that's an acknowledgement of a sovereign God who designated Israel, who brought Israel back to life in one day. No other nation has ever been called back to life in one day, but Israel was, and it was because clearly by the hand of God. This is God's nation, his chosen people. It is the place, Jerusalem, the place that he, of all places, said that I placed my name in Jerusalem. This is hugely significant. And so Bibi Netanyahu and the leadership of Israel has to quit looking, just like, the children of Israel many times in the Old Testament. Where did they go? They never turned to God. They were going to Egypt, or they were going to the Assyrians. They were relying on somebody else. Then God says, hey, whoa, hello. Hey, what about me?
Right. And you're right, Bill. And if we look at what's been going on since Bibi got reelected this last time, look at the religious leaders, the Zionists, who are part of his cabinet. What's been happening is that the secular side of Israel, who don't want any reference to the Bible, they're the ones who have been warring against Bibi and his potential policies, just like calling for judicial reform.
Right.
That judicial reform, unfortunately, is not going anywhere because the outcry. Look at what happened right before this war. There were protests. We know that Soros was behind funding people, flying them over for these massive protests in Israel. Yes, there were many of Israelis who were opposed to it because they didn't want to have a theocracy, or what they accuse of being a theocracy. Bibi has been trying to bring the country back to a more foundational place, a biblically based place. And that's why the Orthodox people that are, or members of parliament that are now part of his cabinet, share those same values. But if we look at what happened, again, it is the left in Israel that is trying to prevent Israel from being who God commanded her to be. And so Bibi, again, has got his hands tied. But yes, this nation, I believe what's going to happen, and it is happening already. I see the high priests now are coming out, and they're speaking the blessing over the soldiers as they're going off to battle. So we're starting to see the turnaround happen. We're starting to hear the stories. These are people who were called to be a light to the nations of the world. And until Judah, the tribe of Judah, rises up and establishes and takes her place in the world, in the position that she has been given by Almighty God, by the nation being reborn again, like the prophets foretold in a day. God has a plan. He is going to fulfill that plan. And we need to encourage the Prime Minister of Israel. We need to encourage Israelis. We are with you. We are shocked and horrified by what you have had to endure, and we are not going to tolerate it. But that requires us, again, people of faith and people of conscience. Bill, I work with the Orthodox Jewish community here in the United States and in Israel. We share the same biblical Judeo, of course, us being Christians, we share those values with them.
Exactly.
And we all know that unless God returns, unless he comes back, there is no hope. And so we have to pray. We have to stand with our Jewish brethren, just like when Moses took on Amalek. Moses had the rod of God in his hand, and he would lift that rod up. And every time he kept that rod up, God would bless the Israelites. They would have victory over their enemies. But as soon as his arms started getting heavy, it was Aaron and Hur came and stood alongside him as he sat down on the rock and kept his hands lifted up so that Israel could defeat the Amalekites. We have to be like Aaron and Hur. We have to stand by our Jewish brethren. We have to lift up their arms, and we need to charge them on and encourage them forward to eliminate evil. And here's the thing. You've got Christian leaders who are condemning the evangelical Christians who are Zionists. Why are we Zionists? Because it says it in the Bible.
Exactly.
We're supposed to be Zionists. God's going to stand on his holy mountain, Mount Zion. But everybody has turned that word into a bad word. No, as people of faith, we know God has a plan. He made a covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob, with their descendants that would be eternal. It wasn't going to end, 2,000 years ago. It wasn't going to end when the United Nations voted in 1947 to establish the nation of Israel, and then 48 when they were established. It didn't end there. It's forever. And unless we understand that from a biblical perspective, we're not going to understand. And, God's going to hold us accountable, because we look at the text of scripture. We look at the book of Obadiah, who God told the prophet that in the last days, he was going to wipe out the descendants of Edom because they stood by while their brother Jacob was held in captivity and they did nothing. Well, church, what is God going to do to us? Because we're all going to stand before him at that great white throne of judgment. And we're going to have to give an account for what we did during our lifetime at this time. Just like the Christians in Germany, when they stood before God at that throne of judgment, they are going to have to give an answer as to what they did to the least of these, as Jesus said, to the least of these, whatever you did to the least of these, my brethren. Well, who were his brethren? It was the Jews.
Exactly.
It was Judah. And unfortunately, we read those scriptures, Bill, and they go right over our head. We don't apply them in their proper context.
Laurie, this is our appointed time. When you read scripture, there are key benchmarks that come along, and I look at them as our appointed time in much the same way when Jesus, was above Jerusalem. He was looking down on Jerusalem, and one of the shortest and most powerful verses in the Bible, 2 words, Jesus wept. His heart was broken because his people, the Jews, had missed their appointed time. And I believe, like right now, for people of faith, this is our appointed time to come in alignment with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, to come and support God's goal and his mission for Israel right now, for a time such as this. This is our appointed time. And this is what you're saying. And we need to step up with boldness, don't we?
We absolutely do, Bill. And, like I said, we are going to have to stand before God to give an account of what we did and what we didn't do. And people ask me all the time, what can I do? Well, we just sent a doctor over to Israel who's going over there to serve as a volunteer. We've had several people who have emailed us. They want to serve as a volunteer in the IDF. What can they do? So there's a desire, there's a longing by Christians to help support our Jewish brethren in the land. But even more than that, we have to pray, because what is unfolding in our generations, like what you said, Bill, we're the generation that I believe is going to witness the coming of the Messiah. I believe that our eyes will see him come, because what's getting ready to happen, you can see Psalm 83 war. Look at the nations that are mentioned, or the people groups that are mentioned in that psalm. And those are the same nations surrounding Israel. And you see it little by little. The king of Jordan, he's kind of been silent, but he doesn't want those Palestinians over there. They're trying to get these surrounding countries to absorb the Palestinians, and nobody wants them. Look at Egypt.
Laurie, and I want to talk more about that in just a moment, but let's take just a little pause and break away, because I know what happens between us. We intend to talk about certain things and they don't come up because, we get going. But I did want to give you an opportunity to talk about the America's Children Florida Summit. Can we take a minute and talk about that?
Absolutely, Bill. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me, because I can go on and on about.
Well, both of us, we've been known to do this. All right.
Yes, but no, proclaiming justice to the nation's mission is to educate Christians about their biblical responsibility to stand with Israel and the Jewish people against the rise of global anti-Semitism. And one of the ways we do that is through our Taking Back America's Children Summit. Our children are being indoctrinated with the same anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-Judeo-Christian content, even Holocaust revisionism. Our children are being exposed to this content. It doesn't matter what state you're in. Every school district across this country has had to confront CRT, critical race theory, social emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of this is indoctrinating and making our children think that we as Americans are evil people. And so this has all infiltrated our schools. What we are pushing now is to go county by county, state by state, to equip parents and citizens to flip their children's school boards. We have to take back control of our children. It says in Judges 2:10 that there arose a generation who knew not the Lord and what he had done for Israel. And how true is that here in the United States of America? Fortunately, we've been working with the Departments of Education, Governor DeSantis's Department of Education, Ohio, Tennessee, and Texas, Virginia. We've been working with them to help them with their civics standards. And fortunately for Florida, for us in Florida, which is really setting the standard for the country, is we were able to help draft the standards, the civics and social studies standards in the state of Florida. And now in the state of Florida, 1.8 million kids are going to learn about the role that the Hebrew Bible played in our founding.
Wow.
The role that the Hebrew Bible played in the drafting of our founding documents, the role that it played in establishing our form of government. It's why Moses is in two of the buildings, the Supreme Court building and the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. But that's not being taught to our kids. We used to teach these things in the early years of this country. But unfortunately, we've gotten away from that. But in Florida, Governor DeSantis, thank God, has set the standard. And so now we're taking those standards. We just revised the standards in the state of Tennessee. We're looking at helping other states do likewise. I was appointed to serve on the Textbook Commission and the Standards Review Commission in the state of Florida. And of course, I'm serving as an advisor in Broward County Schools in Florida.
Excellent.
One of the school board members.
Wow.
So the goal is, 2024, ladies and gentlemen, is looming large on the horizon. And if we want to take back our country, we are going to have to start with our classrooms. And the way we take back our classrooms is through the school board. We have to get rid of these liberals who have been put there. George Soros has been funding these school board races for years to the tune of millions of dollars, because the left has known what we are just beginning to find out, that if they can control the textbooks, if they can control the classroom, if they can control the standards, then they can control the nation. And that's exactly.
Well, they've known this for over 100 years, Laurie. This is why progressives took over the public education system. And it's been a slow but deliberate and a determined walk through the institutions. And they've strangled our education system to such a degree. I mean, look at the bottom line. Look at the results that's happening. In Baltimore, for example, you don't have one kid that can pass a standard. In Baltimore, are you kidding me? Yeah. For all the money that we're spending, and of course, the disastrous results are showing up time and again. And it's interesting that these are in blue states. I hate to call it out, but you got to call it out for what it is. It is these Democrat-led states that are bearing public education, and where you have a massive amount of of exodus where, families can afford to do so and they have the time to move their kids out of public education. And of course, the other thing, as you say, which is encouraging, is you've got these families that have made a direct move. And of course, it demonstrates just how quickly things can happen at a local level. So you can be encouraged. I mean, you've got these boards, these school boards that are being taken over by conservative groups. And this is being done in a matter of months, not years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To give you an example, in Williamson County, we were able to flip the school board in one of the most elite Republican conservative school boards, which was one of the worst, most liberal in the state. We were able to flip the school board because the parents brought a textbook that had an anti-Semitic quote to the school board, asked them to remove it. The school board decided to vote to keep the textbook. And we went to work the next day. Within 4 months, we had found parents who would run for school board. We organized, got behind their races, and they were elected, all 6. We brought down 6 school board members in one election in 4 months. So It can be done.
Yes.
Back in 2022, everybody was looking for the red wave. Where's the red wave? They were looking at Congress. They were some were looking in state legislatures, but nobody was looking in the obvious place. And that was at the local level, the school board races, because for the last couple of years, parents have been up in arms, going to school board meetings, being thrown out, having their mic taken off, being escorted being put in handcuffs and escorted out of school board meetings. We've been labeled as domestic terrorists by our Department of, by our Justice Department.
Yes.
Parents have said, you are not doing this to us. We have constitutional rights, and those children are our children. They do not belong to the government, despite what the government says. They say those kids belong to them. Well, no, we're not having that. So what happened in 2022? The red wave was happening in places like Miami-Dade. Miami-Dade in Florida is one of the largest school districts in the country. It has always been blue. It's always been run by Democrats. Not so much anymore. But we can't stop there. And that's what, again, Bill, this is why this summit is so important. It's going to take place on November 12th in Boca Raton, Florida. And anybody can join. You can, there's right there, go to pjtn.org, and all the information is right there. We're bringing in the Leadership Institute. Again, we're using the strategy that we use to flip the school board in Williamson County. But Leadership Institute is coming. Stephanie Myers is coming. Basically, they're going to show you, it's all one-day summit, one-day seminar. And they're going to show you how to launch an effective campaign to win, and show you how to strategize your plan. And then also, once these people get elected, we're not just leaving you. There are going to be people, organizations that are going to be there, like PJTN, to help you, to advise you, just like we're doing in an advisory capacity with Broward County Schools, with one of their school board members who we encouraged to run for school board, and she won her race. She's the only conservative on that all blue, all Democrat school board. And it is a challenge being alone, but we keep telling her, hang in there, because we're going to bring you some relief in the next election.
Exactly. Well, and this is the thing, is that it's a never-ending battle. We talked with Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears from Virginia, and they were kind of like the vanguard of this revolution that had taken place, and what they did in order to elect a Republican governor. And, the things that they've been doing there in the school system, they've had a lot of problems, but look at ideology runs deep. As Dianne Feinstein said, the dogma of their ideology runs deep in them, and we cannot give up for the sake of our kids. And, the kind of books that they're, still finding a way to purchase at taxpayers' expense, and to expose our kids to. It's absolutely disgusting. So much so, Laurie, that when you go to read one of the books at a school board meeting, they don't want to hear it. They don't want you to read what it is that they're exposing our kids to, I think, which is quite hypocritical, to say the least.
Oh yeah, they turn off the mic and they say, "Oh, we can't have that. There's public airwaves waves going on here. This could be distributed through the media, and we can't have that. There's a law against that." And parents are saying, "Hello, there's a law against that, but what about the child indecency laws that are not being upheld? There's federal and there's state child indecency laws, and some of the books that we're finding." Not just the textbooks, but now the library books, the pornographic content that our children are being exposed to, the death cult content that our children, we wonder why our kids are emotionally traumatized after what we just did to them with COVID. And now we're showing them, we're robbing them of their innocence by sexualizing them and showing them horrific images. It's outrageous. And they're telling these parents and these citizens they can't have a say in the books. And what's happening across the country now is parents are starting to go to the library, their kids' school library. They're looking for these books. And we're telling people, when you find these books, you need to contact your district attorney locally, and you need to contact your sheriff. Because the sheriff, remember, the sheriff is the most important person when it comes to your constitutional rights in your community. Sheriffs are supposed to be constitutional sheriffs. They're supposed to uphold your rights. Also, the district attorney is supposed to uphold the laws of the state and the federal government. And if you can show a district attorney, look at this propaganda, now compare that to the child indecency laws and ask them, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to handle this? Because what needs to happen is these teachers and these librarians need to be arrested. If they're going to subject our children to content, textbooks, library books that are in violation of federal and state statute, they need to be arrested and they need to be charged. And I know people, me making that statement that teachers will go nuts and Randy Weingarten will go ballistic. How dare she say this? I was condemned in Tennessee because I said they needed to arrest the head of the library, the librarian in the Nashville Public Library, because he was making all of this material available to young children. And of course, they went absolutely nuts. But you know what? Too bad. We have rights too. And we need to start acting like we have those rights. We can't be intimidated by these people.
And the thing is, Laurie, these are God-given rights. See, now we go full circle. We're back to this being it's all coming out of a spiritual war that is taking place right now. And our rights that are given to us by God, not the government, but by God. But if you turn your back on God, you don't have anything to stand on, right?
That's right. We are going to be held accountable again by what we allow. The indoctrination of our children cannot stand. We have to speak up and we have to change. You know, as I said earlier, our strategy is county by county, state by state.
Right.
I can't go into your county, Bill, because I don't live in your county. I have no standing, but you live in your county.
Exactly.
You're the one who can hold accountable your elected officials, your county commissioners, your city aldermen, especially if you know that this stuff is being taught to the children, because we are destroying the next generation. We are destroying the future, our children's future and the future of this republic. It is critically important that we go back to the basics. We teach our children how to read. Our kids can't read because teachers don't have time to teach them phonics and how to read, because they have to meet all of these quotas, all this criteria. They got to teach CRT and SEL and DEI and all the other garbage that only destroys.
That they tell parents they're not teaching, Laurie.
Yeah,
flat lying.
That's right.
Yeah,
they do.
Exactly. Yeah,
and they're not ashamed of it.
No.
We have found and we've heard from teachers, like in the state of Florida, where teachers in their arrogance have stated that they're not teaching what Governor DeSantis is requiring. They just
Exactly.
hired at the University of Florida, Ben Sass just hired our nemesis in Tennessee, Penny Schwinn, who was the former Tennessee Education Commissioner, who brought the garbage to Tennessee schools. And then she left the beginning of June this year, and Ben Sass hired her. He started a whole new position for her at the University of Florida. Now she's going to oversee the pre-K through 12th grade programs, the future teachers. She's going to be indoctrinating them with all of this propaganda so that when these teachers go out to get a job, they're going to continue to further the propaganda
Of course.
that they peddled in the university.
Exactly.
And of course, it's familiar to them because they've already, when they graduated from high school, this is what they were taught in high school. This has been going on, like you said, for a long time. Fortunately for us, Bill, and fortunately for the United States, you and I were born. We are the last generation that was educated accurately about our country. And so it is up to us, our generation. We must stand up and speak out and say, no, you're not teaching this garbage to our children. You're going to teach our children the way we were taught in this country, to love America, to understand our responsibility. To whom much is given, much will be required.
Well,
And
the greatest generation, Laurie, handed the baton off to us, and it's up to us to continue the legacy that they gave us and that we enjoyed as kids when we grew up. Again, Laurie, remind everybody one more time, and then we're going to go back and talk about what's going on with the Palestinians. Taking Back America's Children Florida Summit. Remind everybody again where they can go. Go ahead.
They can go to the website at pjtn.org, fly in. It's only one day. It is on a Sunday. We have a pastor that's coming to deliver a message, a pep talk, scripture verses to encourage the team. And we would love to see you. You can, again, if you want more information, go to the website, pjtn.org, click on the links and register. We would love to have you. We'd love to see you. And you don't have to be, we're inviting everybody to come.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are coming because they've already said in their mind, I'm running for school board in my county. Enough said. Some people may say, oh, no, I don't know about running for school board. Once you come and once you hear the strategy and you see it laid out, and we give you the soup to nuts blueprint as to how you can take back local control of your community by running for school board, you're going to have you're going to leave that event with a different attitude. But even if you don't run, you're going to have more information so that you can help friends and family or your neighbors who decide to run for that school board race. But we all have a role to do. So yes, thank you for letting me just remind everybody, Taking Back America's Children Summit, November 12th, Boca Raton, Florida. You fly into Palm Beach International, or you fly into Fort Lauderdale, and it's an easy 30-minute ride to Boca. And we're looking forward to greeting everyone there.
Well, that'll be great. Laurie, got about 7 minutes left, and I did want to come back to the issue of the Palestinians. You brought this up, and I thought this was quite interesting because it seems all the neighboring Arab nations don't want anything to do with the Palestinians. What are the Palestinians kind of the ugly stepchild of the Arab nation?
That's exactly what they're considered, and that's why nobody wants to take them in. And it's unfortunate that nobody is making a big to-do about this. The fact that Egypt is being forced begrudgingly to accept these people because everybody knows they are troublemakers. They'll sow dissension in the ranks, and that's why they don't want them. So with Egypt allowing them to come through the Rafah border, Egypt is going to make sure that they don't get to just wander off wherever. They're going to keep them contained.
Exactly. Well, even when you think like even Abbas, they're in the West Bank, which was the leadership of the PLO, right? He wants nothing to do with them. And at one time, they were the government of the Gaza, and he is noticeably quiet about taking any of the any of the refugees, from the Gaza into the West Bank.
Mhm. Yeah, I think because there is that rift between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, even though they may share in this horrific tragedy toward the Jews, they all agree on that, but there's this tension between the two because Mahmoud Abbas wants to be the leader and remain the leader, and the world lets him remain the leader. How many years has it been since his election? They've not held another election.
Exactly.
They are afraid, and rightly so, that if they hold an election, Abbas will be booted out, and Hamas, the terrorist state, will take over Judea and Samaria, or as the world calls the West Bank, and Gaza, the Gaza Strip. So no, what has to happen is Israel needs to go in there. They need to level the place. They've been doing everything humanitarian, the humanitarian way that they should be. They're dropping leaflets. They're pinging people's cell phones, sending them text messages, letting them know we're coming in. But again, Hamas won't let them out, won't let these people out of the buildings because they want the collateral damage. They don't care about these people.
Well, they really don't. And
crisis.
Laurie, you'd almost think the Palestinians at some point would get a bit of a backbone and kind of like, I was reading in my devotional the other day and reminded of when, when Sheba was running away. Sheba, he broke away when King David came back to Jerusalem after the conflict with Absalom. And Sheba ran off into a neighboring settlement and was protected in this castle, so to speak. And the leader of the Israeli army talked to a woman says, well, what can we do? I mean, because she's telling the residents there going, hey, we're going to get killed here. The Israelis are here. And so she asks him, she says, what do you want? And he says, send me the head of Sheba and we'll leave you alone. Well, in short order, the head of Sheba came flying over the wall, and Israel retreated and went back home. But it took courage and leadership. And you would think for all that the Palestinians did, I mean, you have Palestinians saying, look, we want peace. We want to just be able to, raise our kids. Well, but look at, you have people amongst you, you have leadership amongst you, and you have to find some backbone to find a way to throw their heads over the wall so that you could possibly have an opportunity where you could negotiate something to have, if it is to be God's will that they be remain in Gaza until Jesus comes. That's certainly, God's in control of that. But short of that, I don't see how else they can survive, Laurie. Do you?
No. I want to just remind everybody that the prophet Ezekiel in chapter 33 was told that God spoke to him and said that when you see an enemy advancing, you are to sound the alarm, blow the trumpet, so that the people in the city can prepare. But if the watchman does not sound the trumpet, does not sound the alarm for the people to rise up, then if any innocent blood is shed by the people in that city, it will be required of the watchman.
Exactly.
We must sound the alarm now. We have to get behind Israel. The world has to allow Israel to wipe out evil. Is it more just to allow terrorists to survive, or is it more just to protect the innocents from the terrorists? So, Bill, we have a responsibility. We know the truth, and God is going to hold us accountable for what we did and what we didn't do in this hour. Now is the time we have to speak
Exactly.
up. I want to encourage your audience. Please go to our website at pjtn.org. Go to the media page. We produced documentary films. We produced television Focus on Israel programs. If you want to understand the history of what is going on, those programs are there from a biblical perspective. I'm not just teaching you what's politically expedient. We're not just sharing that. We're sharing with you what God Almighty said from the beginning. And what is our duty to our Jewish brethren? Do we stand by, or do we get our trumpet and blow it as loud as we can to wake up the church? The church has got to wake up, because the church, even Christian leaders, are confused about that. And again, the event, Taking Back America's Children, again, we've got to teach these values to our kids.
Well, because good cannot cohabitate with evil.
No.
And that's really the bottom line. And until Jesus comes, we need to continue to fight the good fight of faith. Laurie,
right.
I cannot thank you enough, for your time, for coming on and being able to have this open forum and conversation where we can, hopefully educate our audience, our viewers, and that hopefully they're motivated to do a deeper dive. I mean, don't just take our word for it. We've been saying repeatedly in the last year or two, especially, Laurie, that you must own your own knowledge. This has to come from you, not from some 8-second soundbite, and test it out and see if what we're sharing with you is not the whole truth and nothing but. So help us God, to the best of our knowledge, right?
Amen and amen, Bill. Yes, that's exactly right. God is going to hold us accountable. We're not going to be able to hide behind our pastors and say, I didn't know any of this. We have to seek out the truth to show ourselves approved. We have to study the word. We have the ability, we have the freedom to be able to study the word.
Exactly.
And shame on us if we don't take advantage of it.
You got it. Laurie Cardoza-Moore has been our guest. Laurie, again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Always good to be with you, Bill. God bless you. Keep
God
up
bless
the
you.
work.
You got it. For more information and to be a part of this mighty movement to return to God and save our country, check it out, BillMartinezShow.com. May God bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you his peace. Thank you so much for being with us. God bless.